Weightlifting shoulder injuries. 56.3 of current shoulder injuries started during bench press training. The U.S. Army even went on as far as issuing their own report about bench press injuries after seeing so many soldiers hurt by it. Is it really almost time to put this to bed?
No, I don't think so. I think we just have to get people to understand that there is a reasonable frequency and a reasonable volume. The reasonable frequency is once a week. You should not, I don't think you should bench press these specific exercise itself the same way, the same hand grip more than once per week. I also don't think you should do more than 5 sets.
Hey everybody, I'm Anthony Renna. Welcome to episode 424 of the Strength Coach Podcast. We talk about relevant topics with top coaches in the fitness industry to help you become a better trainer, strength coach, therapist, or business owner. Guys, this is 18 years. This is the 18-year anniversary episode. I released episode 0 in October, which was just, hey, this is what we're going to be doing. But our first episode with Sean Skane was the first week of November in 2007. So this is our anniversary episode. So I did do a social media post thanking everybody, but I do want to just mention once again, Coach Mike Boyle, who had the faith in me and who has allowed me to do this for this long, has never really interfered or kind of given me his thoughts on it or whatever. He just let me run with it. And I wouldn't be here without him. And Chris Pryor from Perform Better, who has sponsored me from day one. Let's be honest, if I wasn't making money on this, I wouldn't be doing it for this long anyway. So Chris Pryor and Mike Boyle, we wouldn't be here without them. And on that note, I do want to dedicate this episode to longtime Perform Better employee Rob Milani, who we lost a couple of weeks ago. Rob was an amazing husband, father, and friend to so many of us in not only the Perform Better family, but in really strength and conditioning in the fitness world. And it wasn't just in the US, it was globally. Rob had a lot of connections and he was doing it for so long and he was so knowledgeable and he's such a great guy and everybody loved to, hang with Rob for certainly in the summits during the social hour. And he worked like a dog when he was there and he was such a great guy. Spent many nights having a couple drinks with him and Aaron, throughout the years. So greatly missed already. And I just wanted to dedicate this episode. Rob was instrumental in some of the early episodes in 2007 and 2008 when we had no idea what we were doing with the segment, the Ask the Equipment Experts segment that we started out with. So again, just wanted to dedicate to him and mention him because he had such a big impact on so many of us. All right, so today I have on Coach Boyle and we talked about a few takeaways from some of the gyms he visited on a recent trip to Nashville. We're going to talk about some ridiculous recommendations for high intensity interval training. And I think there's a lot of good that comes out of some of these really big influencers talking about this stuff. Sometimes I don't know if they're working with people and the recommendations can be a little ridiculous. So we talk about that. Is it time to put the barbell bench press to bed? And we just really that led from some statistics on how many injuries come from the barbell bench press, how many shoulder injuries. And then we're going to talk about using isolated shoulder work in the warm-up and finish up with some voodoo flossing, something Coach Boyle has recently kind of rediscovered. At first he wasn't using it and now he's been a big fan of it. So we're going to talk about that. We also have the Business for Unicorns Fitness Business Power Play segment on today. Mark Fisher is going to talk about beginning with the end in mind. And that's really just getting clear on what you want. Too many business owners, trainers, too many people don't think about these things. And coincidentally, in my book, Be Like the Best, I interviewed Mark, and that's something we talked about extensively. And the Be Like for Mark's section had to do with goal setting. So what's pretty cool, Mark's going to talk about a goal setting framework he has, and you can email him at mark@businessforunicorns.com to get that goal setting framework as well. He's going to mention it in the segment. Don't forget, check out businessforunicorns.com. They have a ton of free resources, not just for gym owners, but for all trainers. So here's Mark Fisher.
Welcome to the Business for Unicorns Fitness Business Power Play. In each segment, we give you an actionable tactic, strategy, or tip that you can use to build a fitness business and a life you love. And if you're interested in more completely free business building resources, you can go to businessforunicorns.com or click the link in the show notes. Today, I want to talk about one of the most important frameworks you can use if you're looking to build a fitness business and a life you love. And it comes from the amazing Stephen Covey's book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And that is beginning with the end in mind. So I do a lot of work helping gym owners and fitness professionals move towards a life they want. And the thing I have to tell you is very interesting is oftentimes when I get into these calls or have these conversations, it is clear to me oftentimes the person isn't actually clear on what it is that they want, right? Now, first of all, I want to normalize this. I think that's pretty normal. I think a lot of people, haven't gotten out of their day-to-day life to stop and breathe and really think about what it is that they want. And I think that is okay, but then you run the risk of scrambling up the ladder, getting to the top of the building, only to discover you're on the wrong building. So I recommend, if you haven't done this recently, maybe spend some time the next week or two thinking about where you want to be, let's say in 5 years' time, so you can do some reverse engineering. Now, I want to note, one of my favorite sayings is plans don't work, but planning always does, right? Which is to say that I am a religious devotee of this particular strategy. And the reality is, it's funny, having looked back at a lot of the goals I've had over the past few years. I had experience not that long ago, it was maybe 2 years ago. I remember I've been doing this since 2010. I remember I found an old goals journal, and I remember coming downstairs just in tears. And my wife was like, "What's happening? What's going on?" And I was like, looking at my goals journal. I was so moved because I surpassed a lot of the goals in there. Now, the other thing I want to say that's very important is I often took a very different path than I thought I was going to, even though a lot of things I wanted, I eventually got. I achieved a lot of the goals I set forth, but I often did them in a different way, right? So I think it's important to point our ship in the direction of the life we want to be living, and then give yourself the flexibility to allow it to ebb and flow over time, because I think how we might get there is, of course, going to evolve. So I think there's a lot of different things one can say about this. I have a free resource. If you want to email me at mark@businessforunicorns.com, I'm happy to share this with you. But essentially, I have a goal-setting framework that I have used for many, many years. And there's a lot of things to it. But I think for the purpose of this segment, to keep it tight, at the very least, I think you want to be clear on how many hours you want to be working, what kind of work you want to be doing, who you want to be doing this work with, and what income you want to make, right? Now, listen, these aren't the only things. And frankly, one of the things I don't always love about some approach to personal development is they get very, I think, self-centered, right? And I don't mean that as a critique, because you should care about what you want, obviously. But I do think we also want to have some aspirations, some clarity on how we want to impact the world, right? And how we want to service other people in a way that feels good, right? All that said, my experience talking to a lot of fitness professionals and gym owners you all tend to be a very other-centered crew. And I mean that as a compliment, right? You have a big heart, you want to make impact, and that is amazing. And I think in order to help other people, it's also important that your life is one that is humane and you build a business that works for you and your family. So I think if you haven't done this recently, this is something worth doing, right? Again, at a high level, it's really nothing more than, giving yourself 15 minutes on the clock to write about your dream life in 5 years. Because of course, we overestimate what we can do in 1 year, but we underestimate what we can do in 5 years. And again, if you want a very simple framework for this, you can email me, mark@businessforunicorns.com. I'm very happy to share it with you because I think it's very, very valuable. Because once we know that information, right, then we can work back to understand all kinds of things as far as how many clients you might need, what you might need to be charging, what your team, if any, looks like, where you might be living, right? Everything that we're doing from a action and a strategy perspective has to waterfall down from what sort of business and life you want to be living a few years into the future. So as always, I appreciate your time and attention. If you want more free resources from Business for Unicorns, you can click the link in the show note below or go to businessforunicorns.com. And I'll see you next time for our next Business for Unicorns Fitness Business Power Play.
All right, guys, now it's time for the strengthcoach.com and NBSC.TV Coaches Corner with Coach Boyle, strengthcoach.com, articles, videos, and one of the longest running forums in strength and conditioning and fitness. I actually posted on there yesterday. You can try strengthcoach.com for 7 days for free. Go to strengthcoach.com to start your free trial, as well as mbsc.tv. You're basically a fly on the wall at MBSC, staff meetings, programs, seminars, and in-services from top coaches. You can try that out for 7 days for free at mbsc.tv. Coach, how you doing?
I am doing great, Anthony. How are you?
All right. All right. Coach, you went to Nashville. What I didn't ask you off the air was one of the most influential articles back in the day for me was 20 years, 20 mistakes. And one of those things was where you said, I wish I visited more facilities because you had gotten so much out of the limited, at the time, visits that you had as a young strength coach. And that helped me. That made me start Strength Coach TV to go into gyms and bring the gym to some people. You went to a couple gyms this week in Nashville. Was there anything you really feel like when you go in there, are you still kind of looking around like, ooh, we should do this or we should do that, or you feel pretty like comfortable with where you guys are at right now?
I think I feel comfortable with where we're at. It's more about continuing to meet people and continuing to have conversations, to meet people that are. I went to Gunnar Peterson's, who's a really good guy. I got to know him more through Ben Bruno's wedding than anything else, but I like him as a guy. I like to talk to him. I went out and saw Brian Kula, who's doing his training Christian McCaffrey. And I think you want to make sure your network isn't shrinking. So you got to get out. You've got to meet people. You've got to, I think I'm more comfortable where I am programming maybe than I've ever been, but it doesn't mean I'm not looking. And that's why it was interesting. I was watching Brian and Cody Hughes they had some kids, younger kids playing with their 1080s, and they were playing with starting blocks. There were things that I was just thinking about, should I be doing that kind of thing? And then it was funny. Gunnar's situation totally different because he's just doing high-end, super high-end one-on-one, and he's got, as he said, he's a self-described pack rat. He's got every bar, every specialty piece that you could possibly think about. He actually had, it was really cool. He had a bunch of his jerseys because he's got so many jerseys. They were on the ceiling. I don't know how he feels comfortable that they're not coming down. I'm not sure what he did to make them stay up there. But I think you always got to be looking at everything, looking at what everybody's doing, looking at what people are doing, both from a business standpoint, from a training standpoint, having conversations with people and just, I don't know, feeling people out and getting a sense of, hey, do I like this person? Do I not like this person? Is this someone I'd like to stay in contact with? You don't know any of that stuff if you don't get out and do it. And you probably learned that when you did the Strength Coach TV thing, you went all over the place, right? And I think you might have seen some things and say, oh, I don't like that. You might have met some people and said, I don't like them. You might have met some other people and thought, wow, I'm really glad I met that guy. So I think it's that ability I liked. I enjoyed my conversations. Both situations I felt, wow, I could have stayed half a day, but I was also in Nashville with friends who were expecting me to come back and get out to the bars, do the things we really came there for. So when you said mistakes, I was thinking that I didn't think I said that 3 days in Nashville was a mistake. I didn't think that was in the article, and that's what I thought you were going to bring up. But it's on a totally different track.
Mike, also I think with visiting people, sometimes you get a better sense of, in terms and we've talked about this. Let's say the guy that trains Christian McCaffrey, like somebody might be like, oh, that's all he does. That's all he trains. That's the only person. Big deal. I don't care about him, whatever. Or Gunnar trains, Gunnar does one-on-one, right? High-end celebrities. That's not normally your lens. It's so great to kind of go and see somebody and then realize that, what's his name? Brian Kula?
Kula, yeah.
How many people maybe he's training and what a great job he might be doing on this. And you start to not soften, but you start to understand or get some empathy for what somebody, feel some empathy for what they're doing now a little bit more. You get a better feel for than just the social media presence.
Yes, exactly. You see the real person. And like in Brian's case, he's been training Christian, I think, since he was in high school.
Yeah.
So he has that relationship with him. He's not a guy who's jumping on the bandwagon late and saying, oh, yeah, I trained this guy. He's a genuine guy. And he's a guy who came up in the high school kind of teacher coach role. So much more like me, I think. And So it was great. And then Gunnar thing, completely different, but a really good guy, just a genuinely down to earth, just like same thing. I went over there early in the morning. I could have stayed the whole day just bullshitting with him about kind of life more than training because I don't know. I think I probably have more in common from a training standpoint with Brian, but I probably have as much in common with both of them from a life perspective because you've been in it. Both guys have been in it a long time. And the one thing you notice, I think, is the guys that have been in it a long time have a sense of humility that is refreshing.
Good point. Rhonda Patrick had a video. I think you reposted it. Roughly 40% of the people who meet standard activity guidelines, 2.5 hours a week of moderate exercise, still fail to improve their VO2. That's because moderate intensity training alone doesn't offer enough stress to boost the cardiovascular fitness to break through that plateau. Incorporating high intensity interval training can make all the difference. Perhaps the best research backed method is the Norwegian 4x4 protocol. 4 minutes at the maximum intensity you can sustain, given a pace usually around 85 to 95%. I'm sorry, I'm laughing, but then 3 minutes lower intensity, similar to zone one, repeat 4 times. Come on. I mean, honestly, I know she's brilliant, but this is when sometimes you wonder somebody's going to go and try to get on a bike for 4 minutes times four. I mean,
I just,
really?
I literally just finished doing it. Literally, like
You did, but
an
this
hour
is all you
ago.
do. You're on the bike all the
Oh, I
time, but
know.
it's
I'm saying, and
ridiculous.
I was just gonna say, and it is the most awful thing that I do. I don't think when people talk about that in this very casual way, they should say, just so you know, if you try to do 4 times 4 minutes at 85%, whatever that is, at maximum effort, 85, but 85%, as it's basically as hard as you can go for 4 minutes. It is freaking horrible. When I
Yeah.
tell you that, I mean, today Joe and I did it today, and it is just I can't, maybe there's worse things, but if there were, I haven't done them. And it's, it's really, really hard. And that's why, but obviously, I think it probably does result in some positive changes because
Sure.
it's really hard.
But again, she's talking to the masses. I don't understand why there's not also, hey guys, look, we know that the Norwegian 4x4 protocol might be the best research backed thing. So here's what I want you to do. Once you get on a bike, go as hard as you can for a minute. Go 3 minutes, 4 minutes, lower intensity until you get your heart rate down to about 100, 105. Then repeat it 2 to 3 times. We want to build up to four. Once you get to four, start building up. Go to a minute and a half each time, then
Honestly,
2 minutes.
we start with 10 20s, truthfully, 10 seconds on, 20 seconds off.
Yeah.
Okay. You'll still it's very, very easy to keep their heart rate above 60%. Really easy. It's
Yeah.
harder to get. Most people won't recover in 20 seconds, even if you say don't pedal at all. Most
Yeah.
people
You're
won't
right.
go down enough. And we realize, okay, this is very palatable for the average exerciser to think, okay, go. And we say 10 seconds hard. We don't say all out. We're trying. That's one of the things we're trying to do now is we're trying to get some guidelines. We have kind of MAS guidelines. Like we know, let's just like maximum aerobic speed. So for me, my maximum aerobic speed 64 RPMs. So if I'm going to do a 10-20, if I want it to be easy, I'm going to do 110% of my maximum aerobic speed, which basically means I'm going to try to hit 70 RPMs. It's not hard. It's hard. It's not terrible at all. It's nothing remotely close to the awfulness of the 4x4. But the one thing, and this, I probably should write this up. The one thing that if you look at whether it's Tabata or whether you look at Minute Off or whether you look at Martin Jabala's 30-second on, 4 minutes off, all of them, every interval method tried showed pretty good increases in VO2 max. So why not try one that's easier as opposed to one that's harder? I will tell you, save the 4x4 for someone you hate or when you're really feeling pretty good about yourself because it is absolutely, positively no fun.
I want to just transition that into the same idea here. Andy Galpin was talking about, hey, once a week, get that heart rate up as high as you can. So with some of my people within the circuits, I'll do hard for 7 at 15 and 52. So it's a 30-second rest. I give a 1-to-4 rest ratio right now. So I've done longer rests in the past, so I'm building them up. One of them's in their 70s, one of them's 68, the other one's 58. So I'll do 3 times, and we'll do like 3 to 4 rounds of that during the whole workout, and I feel like I get them up there, okay, safely, without them able to walk around, not doing anything really harmful or getting injured. What do you feel? What is, when Andy said that? That's what the way I was interpreting it was, get the heart rate up. But it doesn't have to be for, this 4 minutes times 4, obviously. But like, just get it up there, get a good, not just once, obviously, but let's get it up there over time. And we check that box. How, when you're dealing with your adult clients, what are you thinking in terms of that recommendation?
I'm thinking, honestly, I really want to feel that out because I don't know what that number is. I know my numbers.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm very comfortable with my numbers. I think today I don't know. Normally I don't get in the red. Today I got up in there. I think I got to be over 166. I think I got to be 167 to get in the red. I think I finished today at 172 or 173, but 3 of the 4 intervals I finished in the red, which I wouldn't normally do. But that doesn't spook me because I know that I'm just like literally
Yeah.
tipping over the line. I'm
Yeah.
89 or I'm 91%, literally. And I think you've got to kind of work your way up there to figure out, because you don't know what high is.
Yep.
And that's where you've got to be careful looking at people, talk testing. We're very, very conservative with our interval training with our adults because, I mean, wrong could be a heart attack, right?
Yeah.
Wrong, I don't know. I don't know what,
You're right.
luckily, we've never had that happen, but I don't want to be wrong. So I want to think, that's why I said 10, 20. And what I usually do, so when I start, and I did this, my client Eric, who I talk about a lot, who's a friend of mine, we started out with 10-20s, and he's ticking up. So let's say he's 140, 150, 155, and now he's starting to not recover. He's not coming down in the 20 seconds at all. So I'm looking at him, he hits 155, the 20-second rest period's gone, he's still 150. I'm like, okay, we're skipping 2 intervals. And we just skip the next 2 because the bike's counting them for us. So we skip, instead of 2 more intervals, we go a minute rest, and then we go back and finish. It probably took us, I'm going to say, a month to get to the point where he would finish one. Now, this is only 4 minutes, right? At 10-20. You're literally
Yeah.
doing, 8 times 30 seconds. But it took us probably a month to get to the point where he could finish through and be able to get that little wavy pattern that we want to get. So I think you've got to be super conservative. And I think that's part of the reason that adults don't like intervals, because I think a lot of people are dumb and they program things that are so horrible that people think, my God, I never want to do that again. That was the worst thing I've ever done. What I can remember when I used with my BU guys, sometimes I had this freshman, actually, Grant Rolheis was his name. He was a goalie, and he was like, we did our first bike workout, and it wasn't that bad. And he said, oh my God, that's the worst thing I've ever done. And I said, you know something, Rolly? I said, for the next month, every day will be the worst thing you've ever done, because it'll be just a little bit worse than that last one. But that's how, with your adults, it's the same thing. Most of the time, this is going to be the hardest thing they've ever done. And I would like the hardest thing they've ever done to be kind of easy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that, again, so that the next time I can do it again and they can think, ooh, that was, because that's one thing people always make note of. They always say on the bike, it never gets easier. And it never really does get easier, because you get better at the outputs. And because you get better at the
Yeah.
outputs, it never feels like it's easier. Yet, if you said to somebody, all right, now we're going to go back and do, because again, my friend Eric will do, sometimes we'll do 5 miles for time, and he's slowly chipping his 5 mile time down. He is getting better consistently. When we started, He couldn't hold, he couldn't ride 3-minute miles for 5 miles. And now all of a sudden he's getting closer to like 250 miles for 5 miles. So he's down in the low 14s. And it's just, all right, we're getting more fit. And you look at, where he is, and he's gotten very good now at understanding where his heart rate is. Like he knows, like for him, he can tolerate the bottom of the red for a fairly long time. Like you look at, okay, and I would tell you if we did a VO2 test, I could tell you his anaerobic threshold is probably going to be high 140s because he can tolerate that when we ride. You can see what people can do and can't do, but I think you need to have a heart rate monitor. You need to be looking at rest of work. You need to be looking at heart rate recovery. You really, there's a lot to this, and I think most people have very, very limited understanding of what they're actually trying to do. And then, as you said, stuff like again, and this is what I think about whether it's Rhonda Patrick or Peter Attia or Gabrielle Lyon or a lot of these people that are influencers in the world of exercise. I don't think those people have trained tons of people. And I think a lot of their experience is out of books or on themselves. And one is probably as invaluable as the other, right? Your experience on yourself is probably not all that valuable because it doesn't give you the unfit person. So there's and then what the book is going to say is again probably not all that valuable. So I like to get into that practitioner world and be able to say, okay, what are you doing? What are you finding actually works when you've got a group of people, a group of normal people who I would say have normal motivation. Not these aren't triathletes, these aren't people that are riding their bike 6 or 8 or 10 hours a week or whatever it is. These are probably people think of the average person. Sorry, I'm
No.
rambling, but probably has never done interval training in their life, the average person.
Yeah.
And then suddenly you're going to throw something like 4 times 4 minutes at them, right? I mean, insanity.
What I will say is, I think, I like with my group of three, like I said, minimal effective dose, right? So the Monday workout, yeah, we're doing that. And what happened with, two of them were like, okay, that's enough. Great. But the one guy who's 58, he was like, you know what? He was that when I do this workout, actually, I feel like it relieves a lot of my anxiety. Never mind the heart, right? Like right now. And so, and he's younger, he's 58. So I was like, Steve, let's do that as a finisher. We do a couple as a finisher on Wednesdays. The other two, I let them go, blah, blah, blah. And Steve's going to stay and do that just because he kind of likes it, which is, rare. No one really likes the, the
Yeah.
airdyne. But so I use that for even just not a mental health piece. We don't do a full 4 or 5 minutes, but I'm like, let's finish up with some, hard for 7 times 3, with like a minute rest. So, at the end of the workout, and he really it relieves a lot for him. So it's just an interesting way to, when you're looking at, like you said, training these people, you're going to get different reactions, at different times. So,
Exactly.
Mike, I was reading, Michael Easter, who wrote Comfort Crisis, he wrote an article on, it was called Why a World Record Powerlifter Told Me Not to Bench Press. And it was all about Josh Bryant, who he was helping him put on some muscle. And Josh, he figured he was going to be doing some bench pressing, but he didn't do any because he was like, no, look, there was one review finding 56.3 of current shoulder injuries started during bench pressing, right? Sorry, common cause of weightlifting shoulder, not just the average person. Weightlifting shoulder injuries, 56.3 of current shoulder injuries started during bench press training. The U.S. Army even went on as far as issuing their own report about bench press injuries after seeing so many soldiers hurt by it. Is it really almost time to put this to bed?
No, I don't think so. I think we just have to get people to understand that there is a reasonable frequency and a reasonable volume. The reasonable frequency is once a week. You should not, I don't think you should bench press the specific exercise itself the same way, the same hand grip more than once per week. I also don't think you should do more than 5 sets. We know 5 sets would be a lot for us. We basically never do more than, I mean, If we include warm-ups for stronger guys, we might get to 5 sets. But if we included work sets, we're generally not more than 2. So when you really start thinking, I really believe the problem with most people is the volume at which they do the exercise. Most people associate volume with effect. The more I do it, the better I'll get. And I think maybe that comes from the cardiovascular world, right? Because the more you do that, the better the effect. But in the
Yeah.
strength world, that's not the case. Generally, the more you do it, the higher the injury rate. So I don't think we have to stop bench pressing per se as much as we have to limit its use in the program. And then we have to look at too, if you've already got a shoulder problem, though, if you've got rotator cuff issues, if it bothers you to bench press, then yeah, then you just retire it, don't do it. And that's the constant baseball debate. There's all these young college baseball strength coaches who are saying, "Oh, it's fine to bench press. Look at my guys bench. We bench heavy. Everybody's fine." Yet, when I was with the Red Sox with a bunch of older pitchers, not one guy wanted to bench press, not one guy asked to bench press. Every single guy was very comfortable doing dumbbell bench presses, and they were all strong. I mean, guys were handling 100+ pound dumbbells, so they weren't weak, but
Yeah.
they did not gravitate towards the barbell bench press.
Mike, a heavy dumbbell one arm bench press is brutal. Like, try that, guys. You right? I mean, not just the two, because you have the three, some different variations. You could obviously do some different incline and, one arm or
That's
alternating.
what we alternate.
Yeah,
We alternate.
alternating's tough.
We dumbbell incline. We do different angles.
Yeah.
We don't do even our athletes. There's never we may bench press one day, close grip bench press another day, but we never do that the same. We do not repeat the same pattern twice a week, really, in
Yeah.
anything.
Mike, speaking of the shoulder, it was funny. There was a 2020 thread that got reposted, or somebody asked a question. You said, in 2020, you said, I feel like I'm falling behind a bit. I keep seeing things like I don't do Y's, T's, W's, etc. I don't do isolated external rotation. It's all about infrasternal angle. How would people describe their thoughts on scapula shoulder training or prehab? Great thread, by the way. Charlie Weingroff jumped in. Jeff Kubos jumped in. Charlie wrote a book on this. And we're not going to go over it, but then, somebody reposted about this. They bumped it up. You said, I would still say isolated external rotation is best bang for your buck. I'm still not a fan of hanging or crawling, especially for adults. With hanging, most adults can't get full shoulder flexion to begin with, and crawling, too many people beat up their wrist. Get them pulling and pushing properly. We still have the largest benefit.
And it was interesting because for a while, like that was a big Bill Hartman thing. The infrasternal angle thing was very in, wide ISA, narrow ISA, and it's basically like, you know, big guys, small guys, fat guys, skinny guys, but suddenly, Bill was defining it by that infrasternal angle, which I guess is an interesting way to look at it. I don't
Yeah.
know I'm not sure it makes a difference, but it became very popular. But it was also interesting because there was definitely a trend of, oh, no one does Y's, T's, W's anymore. And we don't do them either, truthfully. But we are doing, we're still doing some band pull apart stuff. I've been liking like a banded overhead press where I have the band, I'm stretching the band. So I'm literally engaging my scapula by stretching the band. And then I'm basically pressing air while I pull the band. That's been really good for my shoulders. I think you have to figure out what feels good for you, what feels like the right warm up. And I know that sounds uh, it sounds like a lot of the stuff that I'm very much against, but I still do isolated band. We've got the Perform Better actually has a really nice new band setup that can attach to the racks. So we're still doing band really more external rotation than internal. We're doing external rotation isos. I just don't know if you can go wrong. I always feel like you don't go wrong with cuff work, hip cuff work, rotator cuff work. You're never going to go wrong. It's not going to hurt you, and I believe it's going to help you. So, I always think for the 5 minute investment that might be in whether it's mini bands, which again have become unpopular, or isolated, kind of a 90-90 IR or 90-90 ER kind of thing. I think that's stuff that's always going to have some value, whether it's just warm up, whether it's, go back to the Mark Verstegen, isolation for innovation kind of thing, trying to get these small muscles ramped up. There's a million ways you could look at this, but I think when you just say we're just going to do the gross motor stuff, or we're just going to do, like I said, all of a sudden it was hanging and crawling, and hanging and crawling we're in. And I'm like, we're not hanging or crawling with our adults. Sorry. And a lot of it is I think, again, you want to talk to people who are actually using this, not somebody who's out doing seminars about it. But I want to know, okay, do you have 300 clients? Are the 300 clients using it, and is it working? And if you get the kind of well, blah, 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 I made a video, and you're like, that wasn't the question. Do you have 300 clients, or are they doing this, and is it working? Because I always say we shit test a lot of things, right? You throw the shit against the wall and you see what sticks. We will do that with great frequency, particularly in our adult program. We'll get an idea and we'll think, okay, do we think this is going to be good? Well, we don't know. All right, well, let's try it. Let's pilot it in the adult program and see what the reaction is. Is it easy to teach? Do people feel like it has some efficacy? Or do people think this is stupid? This is a waste of time. Why do we do this? Those are all the things that you want to gauge, because clients can actually, even though they don't know necessarily exercise science, they can be pretty valuable in terms of giving you information that you're going to find useful.
With the hanging, one question on that. I mean, there was a guy who wrote a book on, solving your shoulder problems just through hanging. I totally I know what you're saying about the mobility piece, but if you can work on some of that mobility, and sometimes it'll help kind of moving that joint a little bit. It does. I have had some people who felt like, oh my God, I feel so much better now with the hanging. And they fell in love with hanging. Some people don't like it, but, have you found that with your adults? Like some people you can hang, or you're just not hanging anybody?
We just don't hang anybody,
Okay.
because I found, and this again, probably maybe again, sometimes we always talk about what's the lens, right? I may
Yeah.
be bringing my baseball lens, but like my baseball guys, they did not want to hang.
Yeah.
They,
Okay.
they did not like, they did not like the idea of, and maybe, again, it could be because they're so loose that the separation that they're getting isn't good. Whereas if you get
Yeah.
someone who's so tight, they might feel like, oh my God, I feel so much better because
Okay.
I used my body weight to stretch that out. My problem is that if you can't get there, what is the net result of forcing yourself into that position? I don't think it's a good thing. But again, you could criticize me like I criticize everybody else. You're criticizing something you don't do, right? I'm criticizing
Yeah.
something that I don't do. I've just decided, nope, not going in that direction. I think we'll always err on the cautious side.
Yep. Mike, speaking of something you didn't do and you were criticizing and now you're doing, a little bit of
Oh, a little
the
bit of flossing, yeah,
little
absolutely.
flossing here, everybody. If you
Yeah.
can see, this is ridiculous. I got this about 5, 6 years ago, believe it or not, for my knee. Somebody, my buddy Ernie Lombardi, had used it on me, and I was like, "Wow, that feels pretty good." Like at first, because you're wrapping around that joint so tight, you're kind of like, "Oh, no, this doesn't feel good." And then you do some exercise, you move around a little bit. And I do it for like 2 minutes. I did it with B last night. My wife, her knee was bothering her. And she actually was like, my knee feels better this morning. Can we do that again? Which is very rare because everything I do, I'm an idiot. I'm the worst trainer in the world.
Yeah, yeah,
So it's like a miracle when something like she agrees to something. But yeah, tell me about your experience with this now. Are you using N equals one, right? But are you using with the clients as well?
I've started using it with clients, yes. But it started out just with me. I was seeing a physical therapist named Bree Musco, who's a brilliant young lady, who I miss. She moved back to San Diego, unfortunately, and she started flossing my knee, because my right knee has been just gradually deteriorating, as it will probably do as I continue to age. And I have same sensation like B had. It was like, after I take that off, it feels better. So I started to do it myself when she wasn't around. I'd think, okay, I'll just wrap this thing up. I'll do a minute of kind of either leg press type action or leg extension type action, whatever it is, just something to get the joint moving, and it would feel better. So I have to order another one of those bands because I took mine into work. So I can't do it at home anymore because I have it at work. But I
Yeah.
just did it to another client's elbow the other day who's got a little bursitis in the elbow, and it's like, okay, let's wrap this up and see if we can pump some
Yeah.
fluid out of that elbow.
I went through hockey elbow rehab in August, and then I went back on the ice and I said, no shots, no shots. So I did it for 2 sessions. And then I took some too many shots. There was a goalie at stick and puck. So you know how it's like, oh my God, it's like unbelievable. So I took too many shots. I hurt my elbow again. So I'm back to, back to where I was. But I mean, the only problem with the elbow is you got to put like a piece of tape on it if you're by yourself, and then you wrap it. It's hard to wrap your elbow. It's easy to wrap your knee, but I've been finding I do my knee and then I do my elbow. So it sucks to get old.
Yes, it does. But as I always say, it beats the alternative.
There you go. And it does. Coach, thanks for doing this. And we will talk to you next time.
All right. Thanks, Ant. I appreciate it.